In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do some basic layout using container, flex, or grid. So I've got a website I've built here, and it's just the banner and menu at the moment, but I want to add some content down here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop in a container, and this will act as a wrapper for our content and allow us to give us some spacing. And I'm going to go to the spacing settings, hit this little blue line under padding to link these two settings together. And I'm going to pick 20 there. This is just to give us a bit of space above and below this so we can see what we're doing. And we're going to start with the flex. So I'm going to drop this in here. And we also want some text and an image. So I'm going to drop that in here as well. And I'm going to snip over to our node browser just to get these in the right order. So I see I haven't dropped my image into the flex, but let's pop that in there. And at the moment, these items are displaying above and below each other, and the image is filling the width of that, but we want to change that. So I'm going to highlight flex, and where it says the direction, I'm going to switch that and switch it to row. And now they are side by side. They are butted up to the edges of each other, and we want to create a little bit of spacing there. So we're going to change the gap on the flex. I'm going to set that to 5. So now you can see we've got this gap down the middle there. So that's working great. And if I wanted the image over this side and the text over the left-hand side, we could just swap these round just like that. So it's really easy to do. Let's pop our image back there. And we're going to go back to our resources and let's just drop in a little image there. So already we're building up a nice simple layout there. And you can go in and configure the settings for this to tweak the layout, but this is a quick way to do that left-right layout there. So next up, we're going to look at using a grid for this as well. So let me delete this, and we go back to just our container, and I'll drop a grid in here. And if I drop an image in, you'll see the image is only taking up a small portion of the grid here. And so if I highlight the grid and we go and check out the settings, you can see it's using 4 columns, and that means we can put 4 items in here. So if I add another image, it stacks it up that way. But let's add in some text. So now we can see this has got 2 items in it and our columns are set to 4. But if we lower this to 2, so it's just 2 columns, the items I have in here take up 50% of the space each, so 1 column each. So what we can do again here, we can set the spacing. So let's set that to 5. That's looking good. And if I add more items into this, it will push it onto the next line because we've just got 2 columns. And if I move it up to 3 columns, you can see it shows 3 items on that column, on that row. So you can, layouts are quite flexible like this if you want a nice grid-based layout essentially. And if we go to the node browser, you can move these things around and it will change the order like that. So we can decide where we want those, which is great. Let's go and drop an image in here. And we'll get rid of that one, and let's set this back to 2. Now, you can add wrappers in these to have more control. So I'll quickly show you how to do that. This is a bit more advanced, but it is also still quite straightforward. So let's take a container, and we're going to drop it into our grid. Now, when you drop in a container, it can be a flex item or a grid item. And we want this to be a grid item, and that will give us more control over how many columns this container takes up. So let's go into here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to click on grid, and we're going to have we're going to go to 4 columns here. But this container, I want this to take up let's say 3 columns, and we'll drop our text into there. So now we have our image, which is taking up 1 column, and our container is taking up 3 columns. You can see our image is smaller here, and if we change the size of our container to 2, We could knock that down to 3. So this is a lot more flexible, so you can have more control over how many columns your content takes up. And we could do the same here for the image. So I've dropped in another container, and let's put the image in the container. And we'll go to the flex and grid settings, and let's go make that a grid item. And we can tell the container how many spaces to take up. So let's just increase this up a little bit more so we can do a bit more of a flexible layout. So this container, let's say we want that to take up 3 columns, and this container we can take up 3 here. But if we duplicate this, then we could make this container take up a little bit more. So you can see we can create some interesting layouts. And let's duplicate this one, and we'll put this down the bottom of the grid, and let's make that take up 2. So you can see now this is a really powerful way to work, because it means you can set your content to take up as many or as few columns as you want. So this is really handy for doing these more complex layouts where you have a particular idea in mind, but you're still working to that grid system, so everything remains consistent. All right, that was just a beginner's intro into how to use grid and flex for doing some simple layouts. Now, these can get a lot more advanced, and you can do some really wonderful layouts with these tools, but we'll cover that in more advanced tutorials. All right, thanks for watching this one, and I will see you in the next.